How dismissive avoidants secretly keep multiple partners. It often begins so quietly that you wouldn't even notice it. You meet someone who seems calm, grounded, and emotionally independent. They talk about valuing freedom, space, and honesty, things that sound healthy, even admirable. At first, it feels refreshing. There's no pressure, no drama, no clinginess. But as time goes on, something subtle begins to shift. Their attention feels divided. Some days they're warm and engaged, fully present in every word. Other days they're distant, vague, almost unreachable. You can't explain it, but deep down, you feel it. You're not the only one in their world, and when you try to bring it up, when you ask where you stand or why their energy keeps changing, you're often made to feel dramatic, needy, or insecure. You start doubting yourself, wondering if you're imagining things. But you're not. You're just seeing what the dismissive avoidant personality tries hardest to hide. Their need to maintain emotional control by keeping multiple connections alive, often in secret. Where their fear comes from. To understand this pattern, you have to look beneath their behavior and into their emotional wiring. A dismissive avoidant didn't wake up one day and decide to play emotional chess. They were shaped by an environment where closeness felt unsafe. Maybe they had caregivers who were emotionally unavailable, where love came with conditions, or vulnerability was met with rejection or shame. They learned early on that needing someone meant weakness, and that independence was the only safe place to exist. So as adults, they continue that same dance. Deep intimacy feels like danger. Vulnerability feels like loss of control, and emotional dependence feels like suffocation. They crave love, but they fear what love demands: openness, surrender, emotional transparency. To manage this internal contradiction, they develop coping mechanisms that help them feel safe while still staying connected. One of the most common? Keeping multiple partners. Not necessarily in a loud, dramatic, or player-like way, but as quiet, emotional insurance. Why they keep multiple partners? Each connection serves a psychological function. One person gives them comfort, someone emotionally nurturing and safe. Another brings excitement, passion, or unpredictability, a rush that keeps them feeling alive. A third might be casual, easy, non-threatening, someone who expects little and asks for nothing. It's not about pleasure, it's about protection. If one relationship starts feeling too close, too real, too demanding, they instinctively shift their energy to another person who feels lighter, safer. That transition can happen overnight, from deep emotional talks one day to cold detachment the next. To them, it's not betrayal, it's survival. They're regulating their fear of intimacy by scattering their emotional investment among different people, ensuring that no single person ever holds too much power over their heart. This is how the dismissive avoidant stays in control. Connection on their terms, distant, manageable, safe. The illusion of freedom. On the surface, it might seem like they're just commitment phobic or casually dating. But beneath that exterior lies a much deeper psychological pattern. They believe that emotional dependence equals danger. So they keep people close enough to feel wanted, but far enough to never be trapped. That's why you'll often hear them say things like, "I'm just taking things slow," or "I'm not ready for anything serious right now." These phrases sound reasonable, even mature, but in reality, they're emotional shields. They create ambiguity, a gray area where they can enjoy connection without the vulnerability that comes with commitment. In their mind, as long as they haven't promised exclusivity, they're not doing anything wrong, even if their actions clearly foster emotional intimacy. It's a kind of self-justification that allows them to avoid the guilt of deceit while maintaining full control of their emotional exposure. But what they don't realize is that by dividing their attention, they also divide their capacity for love. They spread their emotional energy thin, never allowing themselves to feel deeply enough to experience true intimacy. The emotional cost. Over time, this pattern leaves them emotionally shallow and spiritually drained. They don't see it immediately, because on the outside, their life looks full. Multiple people, constant excitement, no heavy attachments. But eventually, the emptiness creeps in, because safety without intimacy feels hollow. Freedom without love feels lonely, and control without vulnerability feels like isolation. They tell themselves they're simply not built for relationships, that no one really understands them, or that people always want too much. But the truth is far more painful. They've built walls so high to protect themselves that no one can reach them, not even the people who genuinely care. The moment of confrontation. If you ever try to confront a dismissive avoidant about their emotional distance or the presence of others, the response often follows a predictable pattern. They'll minimize, deflect, or rationalize. They might say you're overreacting. They might tell you that you're too sensitive, that you're imagining things. In many cases, this isn't deliberate manipulation. It's a defense mechanism. Admitting that they've been dividing their emotional energy would require them to face something terrifying, their own fear of love. To acknowledge their behavior would mean acknowledging their vulnerability. So instead, they hide behind logic, sarcasm, or silence. They retreat emotionally, a move that keeps their inner world fragmented and their partners confused. The inner conflict they can't escape. Here's the irony. While they try to protect themselves from pain, they end up creating the very loneliness they fear. They chase control but lose connection. They keep people around to avoid feeling empty, yet they never let anyone truly in. They convince themselves they're fine, that solitude is strength. But late at night, when the noise fades, there's a quiet ache, a sadness they can't explain. They might look back on past relationships, the people who genuinely cared, and feel a sharp mix of pride and regret. Pride because they stayed free. Regret because freedom without intimacy doesn't satisfy the human heart for long. It can take months, even years, for a dismissive avoidant to realize what they've lost. Not necessarily the person, but the experience of being seen, truly seen, beyond their defenses. Why they keep doing it? So why do they continue this cycle? Because emotional patterns don't break just because you understand them. They repeat until someone chooses to heal. For a dismissive avoidant, healing means facing their deepest fear, dependency. It means staying when they want to run. It means allowing love to touch the places they've spent a lifetime protecting. Few do this easily, but those who do, those who sit through the discomfort instead of escaping it, begin to experience something extraordinary. For the first time, connection doesn't feel like loss of control. It feels like freedom of a different kind. The kind that comes from being known, loved, and accepted without having to hide. For those who loved a dismissive avoidant, if you've loved someone like this, understand one thing clearly. Their behavior is not a reflection of your worth. You didn't fail to be enough. You simply encountered someone at war with their own vulnerability. You cannot compete with someone's fear. You can only protect your peace. And sometimes, the most powerful act of love is walking away, not in anger, but in acceptance. When you refuse to be one of many, you remind yourself that love doesn't have to beg to be chosen. You show that clarity, consistency, and peace are not negotiable. They're sacred. Dismissive avoidance may keep multiple partners, but it's not a story of abundance. It's a story of fear. Fear of being trapped, fear of being seen, fear of needing someone. And until they face that fear, until they allow love to be something safe instead of something to survive, they will continue to live surrounded by people, yet deeply alone. Because in the end, the avoidant's greatest act of control isn't about managing others. It's about protecting themselves from the one thing they've wanted all along: true, vulnerable, lasting connection.